Welcome back students to our channel Study with AV. We will continue with Unit 1, Gender Issues. Those who are new to this video, please subscribe to our channel. We will bring amazing educational videos in the coming future. So stay tuned for that. So without further ado, let's begin. So let's revise what we learnt in the last lecture. We taught you social reformers, characteristics of reform movements, contribution of social reform movements in India, gender socialization theory, gender differences and biological factors in gender differences. If you still have doubts related to last lecture topics, do resolve before moving on. So let's look at the topics which you will learn after the end of the lecture. So we will start with cultural meaning of gender differences, social bias of gender differences in relation with color, gender in personality, structural theories, structural approaches, features of structural, functionalism systems theory, assumptions, advantages and disadvantages of structural functionalism theory, deconstruction, gender identity, development of gender identities and socialization practices in families. So let's begin. Cultural meaning of gender differences. It varies across different cultures. It is linked with gender inequality or the relationship of the status of the women to dominant male counterparts. It is determined by social and biological factors. Social bias of gender differences. Biological factors are most prominent in more conservative or traditional societies. In more progressive societies, the role of women is close or equal to that of men. With less or no focus on manual labor, strength and other biological factors like childbearing are less important in these societies. Moving on with gender differences in relation with color. Investigation done by Guilford on the harmony of color combination found that a person is likely to see balance in colors that are closely related or the opposite. Dawkins found yellow had a higher effective value for the men than women. St. George maintained that blue for men streams out for more than women. Jastrow found men preferred blue to red and women red to blue. Guilford and Smith found men were generally more tolerant towards achromatic colors than women. Guilford and Smith proposed that women might be more color conscious and their color tastes are more flexible and diverse. Heart rate were faster in the gray room than in the colorful room. Men were found to have stress reactions more than women. Moving on with gender differences in personality. Sex differences are associated with biological males and females. For example, males are generally taller than females. Some traits are more common in males than females, like aggression, high risk-taking, assertiveness, few traits less common in males than females like sociability, harm, avoidable, emotionality. Moving on with structural theories. Most theories are nothing more than hypothesis that seems to be confirmed by observations. Theory is an organizing principle, a particular viewpoint from which we view the world and interpret what we see. In sociology, competing theories often agree about what we look at but disagree what these observations mean. Theory leads you to depend upon how you interpret the situation or behavior from which you start. Our lives are guided by social structures which are relatively stable patterns of social behavior. Social structures give shape to our lives. Families, community, religious organizations. Certain rituals like handshakes or religious ceremonies give structure to our everyday lives. Moving on to structural approaches. I strongly suggest you grab a pen and paper and make notes. So let's start with consensus theory. Functionalism investigates institutions to consider the functions they perform in society. The functionalist premise is that if an institution exists, then there must be some reason for its existence. As regards educationists, functionalists assume that educational institutions serve some societal need. Educational institutions are examined for the contribution they make towards maintaining society. Let's now talk about the conflict approach. For Marxists, education is part of the superstructure of society. The superstructure is regarded as being ultimately subordinate to the base. Like the economic organization of the society. The economic arrangements of a society structure the hold of wealth and capital and create social classes. Marxists agree with functionalists that education contributes to the working of industrial society and economic organizations. Moving on with features of structural functionalism systems theory. Systems have a property of order and interdependent parts. Systems tend towards self-maintaining order. The systems may be static or indulge in an ordered process of change. Systems maintain boundaries within their environments. Allocation and integration important for state of equilibrium within a system. Moving on with assumptions in structural functionalism systems theory. Societies strive towards equilibrium. Institutions are distinct and should be studied individually. Views as society of function and are interconnected units that work together as a whole to produce a state of stability and order. Because of interconnectedness, the individual units of societies can affect each other. If one functional unit is weak, the structural functions view anticipates a possibly effect upon the entire society. Societies are social units that work towards the natural or smooth working of the system. Moving on with advantages of structural functionalism. Wide-ranging explanations for many social phenomena. Guided a great deal of valuable research. Later models allow not only for stability but also for conflict, social change and power relationships. It has contributed useful concepts to the field. Disadvantages are as follows. Cannot explain rapid social change or breakdown of societies. Resets on assumptions that are hard to test. Explanations can be tautological. Moving on with deconstruction. Its critical outlook concerned with the relationship between text and meaning. Denotes the pursuing of the meaning of a text to the point of exposing the supposed contradictions and internal conditions upon which it is founded. Deployed in philosophy, in literary analysis and even in the analysis of scientific writings. Demonstrates any text is not a discrete while but contains several irreconcilable and contradictory meanings. Any text has more than one interpretation, the text itself links those interpretations inextricably, the incompatibility of these interpretations is irreducible. Moving on with gender identity. Personal conception of oneself as male or female. This concept is intimately related to the concept of gender role, which is defined as outward manifestations of personality that reflect that gender identity. Gender identity is self-identified, as a result of inherent and extrinsic factors. Example, behavior and appearance. Recognition of gender identity is a process rather than a particular milestone. Moving on with development of gender identity. In usual patterns. Parental influences, early gender development, continuing gender development. Unusual patterns are conditions resulting from genes, chromosomal alterations and genital abnormalities. Moving on with gender identities and socialization practices in families. The focus for the discussion on gender socialization and the family is based on how males and females learn masculinity and femininity through family or primary group interactions, and how they are socialized into dichotomous traditional roles. So that's all for this lecture. Hope you learned something new today. Please subscribe, more interesting lectures are on the way. Thanks for watching. Take care.